Hey everyone, Brandon from Wealth Potion here. This is part 2 in my 3-part video series on how learning the skill of sales has the power to completely transform your life. In part 1, I discussed how sales is incredibly important for entrepreneurship and if you want to start your own business one day. In this video, in part 2, I'm going to touch on how sales transcends business and actually impacts all forms of human communication in our daily lives. And finally, in part 3, I'm going to take it a step further and talk about how sales changes how we communicate with ourselves and actually form our self-confidence and our identity. Today is all about communication. So I'm going to start with sales in a professional context and work our way out from there. And so hopefully by the end of this video, you can appreciate how sales has the power to transform all of your relationships, not just your professional career. So let's dive in. First, let's talk about the professional environment. And even if you don't work in a formal sales role, I'm going to convince you today that you are selling. Whether you're in a marketing department and you have the best, most creative ad campaign ideas, or if you're a software engineer and you have the most efficient, most elegant code, you still have to sell those ideas to your marketing team or your product manager or your company in general in order for others to see that you have the best ideas or the best code. In other words, the best product doesn't always win. And in this case, the product is the output of your work. Whether you're in marketing, in sales, in product, in engineering, you have a product that you are selling to your team and to your company, and you have to be able to communicate why your product is the best work product compared to others. And so we've expanded within the kind of B2B tech organization from sales to marketing to engineering, but it goes beyond the B2B tech industry, and it actually applies to all industries. Now, I'm going to share with you an interesting stat that you perhaps didn't know, but approximately 1/3 of people that receive prescriptions from their doctor do not fill their prescriptions. And out of the remaining 2/3 of people, about half of them are going to get their prescriptions, but they're going to take their medication improperly, or they're going to forget, or they're not going to take their medication at all. So you might be asking, why is this? Why does this happen? A big reason for this is that the doctor or the medical professional was not able to sell the benefits of why that patient should take their medication, why it's so important to their health or to treat their disease or condition. Let's try another example. I want you to think back to your childhood. Think back to elementary school, primary school, middle school. You probably had teachers that you were fond of and teachers that you weren't so fond of. And if you're anything like me, I would imagine that the teachers that you were more fond of were the ones that made you feel like learning was fun. They helped instill a love for learning. I would argue that those teachers were better teachers because they were able to sell the benefits of learning to you better than other teachers. Once you start seeing things in this way, it's really hard to unsee it. I mentioned this in part 1, but just try using a different word than sales in your mind. Try using the word moving. Doctors are moving their patients to take their prescriptions. Teachers are moving their students to do their homework. Parents are moving their children to eat their vegetables or do their chores. We are all selling, and it does not just apply to B2B technology companies. It applies to virtually every professional career where you're interacting with other human beings. All right, so we've covered the workplace, but now let's start to look beyond the workplace. And let's start with the most obvious parallel, which is romantic relationships. If you've spent any time in a formal sales role, you're probably already smiling or laughing at this because there are so many parallels to dating. And you've probably had a sales leader or a sales manager make slightly funny but also uncomfortable analogies to dating. And if you haven't been in a sales role, I'll quickly summarize it here because although these analogies are sometimes cringe, the fact is that it is the reality and it's used so often for a reason. In sales, like in dating, you want to qualify the other person. You want to qualify the buyer to understand if there is a mutual fit between the two of you. On the first date, just like in a sales meeting, you do not want to be talking the whole time. If you're just talking about your features and benefits, then the other person is gonna feel like it's a terrible date. If you wanna have a good first date, just like if you're a good salesperson, you're gonna be asking questions and making sure that the engagement is two-way. And just like in dating, in a sales role, you are constantly gauging the interest level of your buyer to assess if it makes sense to move the deal to the next stage. I could go on because the analogies are truly endless, but there's a reason for it. The world of sales and the world of dating are very similar, so it's quite clear that being better at sales will improve your dating life. And although this is not a topic I intend on diving deeper into on Wealth Potion, I think it is still such a strong example of how learning sales can impact your personal life. But your personal life is not just about your romantic partnership. It also extends to friends and family. And I actually want to share a quick clip. This is a clip from a TED Talk given by Chris Voss. Chris Voss is the author of the book Never Split the Difference. He was a former FBI hostage negotiator. So he would negotiate with terrorists to have them free hostages, which is a very high stakes environment. And his book, Never Split the Difference, is all about how learning the skills of negotiation can apply to all realms of life. And doesn't that sound kind of familiar? So anyways, let's dive into this short story. It's only 1 minute long, and then we'll come back.
All right, last story. A friend, a colleague, a client uses a transformative skill of tactical empathy to cut $1 million deals in the tech sector. He's enormously successful. He's at a family gathering. His youngest sister has had too much to drink. Now, his youngest sister is a primary caregiver of their dying father, and the stress on her is enormous. And he's seen her before at these types of gatherings lash out at other people when she starts in on him. And he realizes now it's his turn. He sent me an email that said, I just wanted to make her feel heard and to not dispute a thing that she said. It went on for an hour. The next day, she sends him an email that says, yesterday I attacked you and you showed me nothing but love. Thank you for being my big brother.
I still get shivers when I rewatch that clip, and I think the reason is that I know exactly what Chris is talking about and the person in his story is talking about, because I've experienced it for myself. Ever since learning how to sell, how to communicate effectively with others, it hasn't just helped accelerate my career, it's improved my relationships with friends, with family, it's helped me develop a stronger relationship with my partner. It's done amazing things for my life. And this is why I am so passionate about young people learning sales. I've had a lot of young people reach out to me throughout the years, either because we went to the same university or they were part of a fellowship or program that I was a part of. And whenever they ask me for career advice, a lot of the time I recommend pursuing sales because it is such an underrated, underappreciated career path. Because spoiler alert, if you go into sales early in your career, it does not mean you have to stay in sales for your whole career. But I do believe that if you learn the skill of sales, especially when you're younger, it is gonna pay dividends all throughout your career, all throughout your personal life, and it's gonna improve your relationships, full stop. And I can attest to that. Learning and practicing the art of sales has improved my life in so many ways, and that's why I recommend it to so many young people. And even if you don't pursue a career in sales, there are so many ways to learn this skill set by just showing a genuine interest in it. I've mentioned a couple books already in this series, and there are many more books that I will recommend, but I highly recommend opening your mind to this world of sales and appreciating how it can improve your life, not just within your career. And so that's it for part 2. In part 1, we talked about how sales is critical for entrepreneurs, that if you want to start and run your own business, you're going to need to learn sales. In this video, in part 2, we talked about how sales really transcends business altogether and applies to all forms of human communication. And in part 3, we're going to go a little esoteric. We're going to talk about how sales influences how we communicate with ourselves, how it helps us form our identity, our level of self-confidence, and it will help you understand your deeper meaning and purpose in life, in my opinion, better than any other profession out there. So stay tuned for part 3. If you like this video, Let me know. If you don't like this video, also let me know. I'm looking for your feedback, so post in the comments and subscribe to Wealth Potion, and I'll see you soon for part 3.